I remember the Indonesian military's Dwifungsi. There's a lot of talk today about Indonesia's military and Dwifungsi, or dual function role. But many people ask me, what was it exactly and what did it mean in reality? Well, in the late 1990s, I was a foreign student at the University of Indonesia in Depok. And at the time, Indonesia was still under President Suharto. And what I came to understand very quickly was that the military didn't just defend the country, it also helped run it. This was known as Dwifungsi ABRI, the dual function of the armed forces. But what did it actually look like? First, the military and police were under the same organization, ABRI, the Armed Forces of the Republic of Indonesia. That included the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and the police, all under one command. This blurred the line between law enforcement and military operations, and both were involved in civilian life. Second, the military had reserved unelected seats in parliament. And in 1997, ABRI held around 15% of the seats in DPR, Indonesia's legislative body, and around 7.5% in MPR, which at the time was the highest institution and elected the president. These seats weren't voted on, they were reserved for the armed forces. Third, military officers held top positions in the government, governors, mayors, and regents, and they were in Suharto's cabinet too. For example, the head of ABRI was also the Minister of Defense. So he would literally change from his army uniform in one meeting into a batik shirt for cabinet meetings. And it was common to see high-ranking officers leading civilian administrations, especially in strategic provinces. Fourth, the military ran their own businesses, and I mean big ones. Logistics, plantations, and mining. ABRI had stakes in all of it. And it was involved in the National Food Agency Bulag, in state-owned enterprises and informal networks outside of the official budget. These profits weren't just bonuses, they were essential. The government reportedly covered only 20 to 30% of the military's budget. The rest came from off-budget income through their own businesses. Fifth, the military played a role in elections and political oversight. Even though Indonesia had political parties, the military saw itself as above politics, the guardian of national unity. That gave it broad powers to monitor and, at times, suppress political activity. So, how did the military get so much power? The idea of Dwifungsi began in the 1950s under President Sukarno during a time of rebellion and instability. General Nasution proposed a so-called middle way. The military would defend the country and help manage its political system. The military said it was needed to keep the nation united, especially when political parties were seen as divisive. Under Suharto, starting in the late 1960s, Dwifungsi became law. Suharto relied heavily on the military to maintain power and, in return, was given broad authority across civilian life. That system lasted 30 years. So by the time I was studying in Indonesia, this was how things worked. Generals in civilian roles, ABRI in government, business, and in daily life. But some people were starting to question it, even some in ABRI. Then came Reformasi, sparked by growing public dissatisfaction. And after Suharto resigned in 1998, Indonesia began a period of major reform. And one of the most surprising changes? Ending Dwifungsi. People didn't think the military would give up power so easily. But the change came faster than expected. In 1999, ABRI was officially split. The police became their own civil institution, the National Police. The military was ordered to focus only on defense and step away from politics and business. And by 2000, the military began pulling out of politics. And by 2004, it had given up its seats in parliament, something that was once felt unthinkable. Military-run businesses were gradually divested or brought under government control, and the defense budget was increased. And by the mid-2000s, Dwifungsi was formally over. No more politics, no more business, and no more local governance. The military had transitioned to its role as a professional defense force and became known as the Indonesian Armed Forces, or TNI. In just a few years, Indonesia went from a military-dominated system to a civilian democracy. It wasn't perfect, but it was incredible change. Change that many thought, including myself, couldn't and wouldn't happen. For anyone watching Indonesia today, especially with the new debates about civil military roles, it's important to understand this history. Because when you hear some Indonesians say, "We don't want to go back to Dwifungsi," this is what they mean.